What if one emergency could wipe out everything that you have worked so hard to build? Getting laid off, a big medical bill, a family emergency. Unfortunately, many people are one unexpected expense away from being back in survival mode. And I don't know about y'all, but a lot of times when it rains, it pours. When one of these emergencies happen, it seems like another one and another one happens all at the same time. I want you to know that financial security doesn't actually start with a 6-figure portfolio or a 7-figure portfolio. It starts with small, powerful stepping stones. A major stepping stone that you're gonna find that most of us personal finance experts actually agree on is starting your emergency fund. So in this video, I am covering a complete guide to building your emergency fund. This is especially perfect for beginners if you've never heard of an emergency fund or if you haven't yet built one. We're gonna cover what an emergency fund is and when to use it, how much to save, where to keep it, how to build it, and what to do if you ever have to use it. I hope you watch until the end because most people never talk about what to do when you actually have to use your emergency fund. But I'm me, I'm an overachiever, so I want you to feel fully equipped and confident, not just in saving for your emergency fund, but in handling whatever life throws your way, including emergencies where you actually have to dip into your fund. Hello and welcome. If you are new here, I'm Lissa. I'm a certified financial planner and accredited financial counselor, and I am the creator and instructor of Hello Money Bootcamp. If you want more information on the bootcamp, check out the link in the description. Let's jump right in. What is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is a stash of money that you are going to set aside specifically for emergencies. Simple as that. The tricky part is knowing what it can be used for. So emergencies are not bills that you forgot to pay or last-minute concerts or trips with your friends. And in my opinion, I don't even think a broken phone counts as an emergency as much as it might feel like one. And trust me, I like my phone. Your emergency fund is your safety net. It's money that's there to catch you when life throws something at you that is urgent, that is unpredictable, that you cannot avoid. It's money that you are going to set aside and hope that you never have to use, but at the very least, having it there is going to provide you peace of mind as well as protection for your financial progress. It makes sure that if life happens, your financial progress isn't going to get knocked off track. This savings bucket for your emergency fund needs to be liquid and kept in a safe place. That means for the majority of people, it makes sense to keep it in a bank account that you can access pretty quickly without penalties, without having to jump hoops, and with no fees. So it's as simple as that. It is money you are saving and putting aside, and you are labeling it mentally as your emergency fund. Now, I know the word fund itself can be confusing, especially if you're new to personal finance. In the investing world, there are investment products called funds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, index funds. I want you to separate yourself from that definition in this context because all we're simply talking about is an amount of savings. The goal isn't to invest any money and hope that it grows. The goal is to give yourself a cushion for life's unfortunate moments. So, when should you use your emergency fund? What counts as an emergency? Here's a quick 4-question test that can help you navigate whether or not something is truly an emergency. Is it necessary? Is it urgent? Is it unpredictable? Is it unavoidable? If you answered yes to all 4 of these questions, that something is necessary, urgent, unpredictable, and unavoidable, chances are it's probably a legit emergency. And if you have no other funds to pull from, then this qualifies for touching your emergency fund. Here are some real-life examples that I believe qualify for using your emergency fund. Number 1, a loss of income. If you get laid off, you can't work anymore, your hours get cut, or you need time off for your health or for your family, these are all reasons you might need to tap into your emergency fund to get you by this time. Number 2, medical costs. Now, this doesn't include medical costs that you can predict, that are regular. We're talking about the unpredictable, unavoidable medical costs that maybe after insurance kicks in still costs a lot because it was a bigger ER visit or something else that you just don't have the funds for. Number 3, family emergencies. We don't like to think of this happening, but oftentimes emergencies happen. Traveling for a funeral or to help out a loved one, short-term caregiving, or simply having to support a loved one, a friend, or a family in crisis. Those first 3, loss of income, medical emergency, and family emergency, are what I like to dub the big 3. They're the 3 most common reasons you would dip into your emergency fund, but I'm going to cover 2 additional ones that could qualify as well. Number 4, car or home repairs. Now, I don't consider minor car or home repairs as emergencies. I like to think of it more as the things that might directly impact your safety, your health, or your ability to work. For example, maybe your brakes go out and you need your car to get to work. Or maybe your water heater breaks and it's wintertime and you absolutely need it. Those are the types of emergencies that might qualify for using your emergency fund. And lastly, number 5, legal issues. No one thinks it's ever going to happen to them, but it's just one of those things in life that can happen. Think being sued or needing emergency legal help because attorneys cost money. So I've told you the big 3, loss of income, medical emergencies, and family emergencies, and I gave you some other examples like urgent car and home repairs and legal issues. But at the end of the day, this is your emergency fund. So you get to decide the rules of what it can be used for and what it can't be used for. Now, let's cover what isn't an emergency. Right? I already alluded to a broken phone earlier, but let me cover this a bit more to make sure that you can compartmentalize in your head of what it can be used for versus what it shouldn't be used for. So just because something is unexpected doesn't mean that it's also necessary and urgent and unavoidable. The broken phone is a good example. That's unpredictable, and for some of you, you might say that it's urgent. Maybe you need it for work or for safety reasons. But I would argue, do you need the brand new $1,000 iPhone right now if your main goal is that you need it to communicate? Probably not. You could probably go with something cheaper and then save up for a brand new phone later. Another thing that doesn't qualify, birthday dinners or last minute trips. And I don't want to downplay these social things. I love a good birthday dinner. I love a good trip with friends or family. These are important things, and sometimes they're time sensitive. They're things that happen spontaneously. But these are not truly necessary in a financial sense. If financial security and building wealth are your main priorities and goals, these are not necessary. Another example of what not to use an emergency fund for, car registration or annual vet visits. So while these are necessary and often unavoidable, they're also predictable. Right? You might not know the exact amount sometimes, but you do know they're coming. So for all of these cases, these are not emergencies. They're what we call irregular expenses. And there are better ways to prepare for these irregular expenses without having to touch your emergency fund. For example, you can utilize sinking funds and rainy day funds. A sinking fund is money that you are intentionally setting aside for a specific planned expense in the future. For example, holiday gifts. Maybe in December, you tend to spend a lot more money on gifts for people because of the holidays. And rather than treating that as an emergency, you can treat that as something you can plan for. Creating a sinking fund would mean calculating how much you think you'll need in December and then break it down into smaller goals so that you can save up between now and then. Same thing goes for annual insurance premiums, or maybe even car maintenance. Even when you actually don't know the exact amount you're saving for, you can come up with a decent estimate and just start saving towards it so that you have a fund ready to go when that expense hits. That's a sinking fund. Now, a rainy day fund is more like a mini emergency fund. I like to think of it as a flexible bucket, but it is a smaller cushion of money that you can dip into for unpredictable expenses, but things that are more minor. A flat tire, a last-minute prescription, or even replacing that broken phone that I keep mentioning. This rainy day fund can help you smooth out any hiccups that come in life that might otherwise harm your monthly budget or your financial progress. The fact is, even if there are a ton of unpredictable minor expenses that come your way, they don't have to harm your financial progress. Having a rainy day fund can do that, and that rainy day fund is gonna protect your emergency fund and protect the rest of your finances as well. So now that you know what an emergency fund is and what to use it for, how much should you save for it? The standard rule of thumb that you might hear is 3 to 6 months worth of essential expenses. The idea is pretty simple. If something happens and you can't work, like getting laid off, or you have a health issue that takes you away from your job, we think of it in terms of months because this is how many months you technically have of breathing room to get back on your feet. That savings is going to help you pay all your regular bills, pay your rent, pay for food, just as you would if you were able to continue working. Now, I know that not every emergency means you're going to lose income. For example, maybe you have a big medical emergency, but you're still employed and you still get a regular paycheck. It's totally fine to use your emergency fund, but the reason we look at it in terms of months, like 3 to 6 months, is because of the thinking around income loss. With that said, personal finance is personal, so here's how to tailor your emergency fund based on your situation. Typically, people who might only need a 3-month emergency fund are people who are in dual income households and people who have steady jobs. Also, if you have multiple income streams that spread out your general risk, sometimes 3 months might be enough. If you are the sole earner in your household, but your income is stable, you can generally aim for around 6 months. This is because you don't have someone to depend on if you were to lose your income. Now, is there anyone who should save more than 6 months worth of expenses? The answer is yes, it depends. Typically, if you are a freelancer, a contractor, you have variable income, or maybe you work in an unstable industry, you might want to shoot for 6 to 12 months worth of expenses to account for any dry spells or periods of time when you don't make any money. Additionally, if you have dependents, so people who depend on you and your finances, if you have ongoing medical needs, or if you simply want more peace of mind, you can also set a goal of 6 to 12 months worth of expenses for your emergency fund. That way, you can have more security. Now, this is important. Once you go beyond 12 months, you want to start thinking more strategically about investing because emergency funds aren't meant to grow endlessly. They're not meant to be grown to multiple years worth of expenses to give you that forever peace of mind. Emergency funds are meant to protect your foundation, to protect your progress, and to give you some peace of mind. But I don't want that to become your end goal. If you want financial security and you want to build wealth, there comes a point where you are saving too much in an emergency fund or savings in general, and when you need to start investing. That's the topic for another video, but I really want to point that out because I do see a lot of clients who save endlessly because they have a scarcity mindset. They think that the more and more that they save in this emergency fund, the more peace of mind they'll have. When realistically, you will have more peace of mind the more wealth you build overall. When I first started building my emergency fund, I actually didn't aim for 3 months. I aimed for $1,500. I felt like this was a good amount, just enough to cover rent, groceries, and a small emergency. That became what I refer to as a starter emergency fund. For some people, I think 1 month's worth of expenses is a solid goal to hit. So if you have no emergency fund at all, work towards 1 month's worth of expenses or a solid $1,500. And even as you continue to build, I want you to feel like you have some breathing room. The goal is to get started. Small stepping stones. Start with 1 month, 3 months, and then depending on your financial situation, build it up to 6 months or somewhere up to 12 months. You don't have to build this fund overnight, but I do think it is one of the earliest and most impactful financial goals that you can work on. A question that I get all the time is, how do you balance building an emergency fund with your other goals? For example, paying off debt or saving money for something else, whether that's a car or a house or a vacation. And honestly, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. It is a balancing act. The key is to know what your cash flow is. If you know what money comes in and what goes out, you can clearly see how much there's left to allocate towards your priorities. You'll have a better idea of how much you can dedicate towards paying off debt versus saving towards your emergency fund versus saving for other things. In my opinion, building your emergency fund is one of the most important first steps if you want to work towards financial security. If you need help figuring out your cash flow, I got you. I'm going to drop a link in the description for you to get my free cash flow spreadsheet. That's going to help you get started, and it helps you calculate what your emergency fund goal should be. Because once you know how much your expenses are on a monthly basis, all you have to do is multiply that by the number of months that you are going to aim for. So you know what an emergency fund is, you have chosen a number of how much you're going to save. Now, where should you keep it? Earlier in the video, I mentioned a bank account works for most people, and that's because the go-to recommendation from many financial experts is saving it in a high-yield savings account, specifically one that offers deposit insurance. For example, if you're in the United States, that would be a bank account that is FDIC insured. Here's why a high-yield savings account typically works for this purpose. It's considered to be safe because of the deposit insurance. It earns interest, typically a higher amount of interest than a traditional savings account, and it stays separate from your everyday spending. I personally like this option because I think it strikes the right balance of keeping your money secure, earning a little bit of interest, and most importantly, it creates separation from the rest of your finances, specifically from your checking account or other savings goals. Generally, you want to avoid keeping your emergency fund in cash under your bed or tied up in investments. I also personally think it should be kept completely separate from other savings buckets. Now, I do know that some people manage their emergency funds in more advanced ways. For example, CD ladders, multiple certificates of deposit that are set to mature at different times. Some people utilize Roth IRAs. In some cases, withdrawals from contributions, not earnings, can be done penalty-free before hitting the age of 59 and a half. Some people actually invest their emergency fund in brokerage accounts, investing it in the stock market and just hoping and praying that there isn't a market downturn when they need their money. Now, I'm not saying these options are completely off the table. If you are more experienced with personal finance and you have the risk tolerance to support it, these strategies can make sense for you. I just want to acknowledge that they exist because in personal finance, there really isn't just one way to do something. If you are a beginner, however, my 2 cents is to keep it simple. A high-yield savings account that's separate from the rest of your savings is going to do exactly what it's supposed to do. It's going to store your emergency fund money, and it'll give you peace of mind knowing that you have it if and when life's unexpected emergencies happen. Quick intermission. If you're sitting there thinking,
Lisa, I need help with all of this.
Don't worry, I got you. Inside my Hello Money Bootcamp, we walk through your emergency fund step by step, but it goes way beyond that. We cover all the basics of personal finance. It is a comprehensive financial education for beginners that is meant to make you more confident with money and more confident about your path towards building wealth. Head to the link in the description to check it out. All right, let's move on to how exactly can you build your emergency fund, including if you are starting from zero. Step number 1 is to start small. Like I mentioned earlier, pick a flat goal like $1,500 or 1 month's worth of expenses and let that be your first milestone. Practice the habit of setting aside a small amount until you hit that goal. Number 2, know your cash flow. I mentioned earlier that knowing how much money comes in and goes out is going to give you key information to know how much can you realistically set aside on a consistent basis. Step number 3, you can automate it. You can set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your emergency fund, or set up a second direct deposit through your employer if they allow it, and if you're paid on a regular schedule. That's going to help make it a habit that you don't have to think about, and all you know in the back of your mind is that it is being built over time through consistent actions. And finally, stay focused. Building your emergency fund isn't going to last forever. Once it's funded, you can start using that money that you're using towards it towards other things, paying off debt more aggressively, saving towards other goals, starting to invest and really building wealth. But first, I just want you to focus on laying your foundation and starting with small steps. Now you have all the information you need to build your emergency fund. What then do you do if you have to use it? First and foremost, know that it is okay. That's what it's there for. I know that when you save a lot of money and you end up having to use it, you feel like you have taken 2 steps forward, 10 steps backwards. I think that can be the case if you are saving without a strategy. If you're saving money for a new car and then some emergency happens and then you take away from your car savings. But this is different. You are saving it for this purpose. So if an emergency comes up, let yourself know that it's okay. You planned for this. A lot of times people who are really good at saving money have a hard time spending it, even when it's absolutely necessary to spend it. So I want you to remember that and remember that this was the plan to begin with. If you have to dip into your emergency fund, focus on handling the emergency first and foremost. That should be your priority, because oftentimes emergencies aren't just causing you financial strain. There can be emotional strain as well. Losing your job, financial strain, emotional strain. Medical emergency, financial strain, physical strain, and emotional strain. One of the most powerful benefits of an emergency fund is that if and when a crisis happens in life, at the very least, you don't have to worry about the financial side. You're already going to be strained and stressed out as it is. At least you're relieving yourself from that financial stress as well. Then, when things get stable and you're past the crisis, you can reassess your budget. You can rebuild your emergency fund in stages just like you did the first time. Review your cash flow, figure out how much you can save towards it, and start rebuilding it. Most times you're not going to use your entire emergency fund, so you're still going to have some there already. But the goal is to build it back up to where you had it. I personally never thought that I would be so calm about getting laid off from my 6-figure income job a few years ago. But because I had an emergency fund and I had a plan, I was not afraid at all. I had all the peace of mind in the world. Now I'm building back my emergency fund and I feel peace of mind with my finances in general. Even though I had to dip into it and use all of it, I feel confident that I know which direction to go. And that's what I want for you too. Know that it's okay to use it. That's what it's there for. And hopefully it protects you from taking any steps back from your financial progress. If you've made it this far in the video, I know that you are serious about your financial future, and I'm so happy about that. So let me know in the comments, are you building your first emergency fund? Are you rebuilding it? Or do you have it locked in already? Please feel free to share. I would love to hear from you. I hope this was helpful, and until next time, peace out.